Yes, so hello everyone. Sveiki visi, sveikos. Ar visi suprantat angliškai? Nereikia vertėjų. Okay, so yeah, this event will be in English. So I'm very grateful. Today we have Olga Shparaga. Shparaga or Shparaga? Is it?
Shparaga.
Shparaga. Okay, we have Olga Shparaga, feminist scholar, philosopher, and I think you have many other titles. So Olga is from Belarus. She is part of let's say a broad political opposition to the Lukashenko regime. But I'm very grateful that you came here. I found your book in the bookshop that is just downstairs. I read it. And I was researching your name, and I looked at, you're living in Vilnius, like it was written in the book. So when I wrote you, I saw that you're already away from Lithuania, and I was super happy that you wrote back and said, yeah, I'm here actually in Lithuania in March, and I can come visit you. So I'm very happy that you were open for this invitation. So I don't know, without much further ado, as they say, maybe we can start from what do you do now, from a bit about what are your activities now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first, it's okay. First, thank you very much for inviting me here. I'm very happy to be here. I like such places. And I'm very happy that we have now this book in Lithuanian language, and such book we have now in German and Russian and Lithuanian, and in Russian language, a book was published in Lithuania in Vilnius as well. And such book is a little bit another. We have a new chapter here, and there is in Lithuanian book about also about not only about 2020 but about 21-22, about this new very difficult situation in Belarus, and about practices not only of resistance but about agency, if we use these feminist concepts. And I think that feminist concepts help us to describe, to understand situation in Belarus as well. And as for my activities, I'm at the moment researcher in the Institute for Human Sciences in Vienna. And I like this institution very much because in this institution are people from different countries, a lot of Ukrainian from Ukraine, and we are discussing all the time this situation, this European war in Europe. And there is a task for me as well to make clear for my Austrian, German colleague what is going on, that European countries had to support Ukraine with weapon and every way, and not to forget, of course, Belarus. There is another task for me to discuss Belarus, and because of my book published in Germany in this big edition house, Zurkampf, book was good written. I still have different discussions and lectures at different universities in Germany and Austria, and there is a good possibility to speak about Belarus, and my task is now to work with documentation on what is going on. There are a lot of different interviews with people who are in Belarus, yet now in this anonymous way, and from people who were imprisoned during these years from 2020, and other processes. And I think there is a task for me to speak about this, and to speak about this like in my book from philosophical feminist perspective, not as journalist but like a philosopher and theorist, but in this way to make this understandable And this book is another. If I compare with my previous book, they are more theoretical, and this book is more narrative. But of course, you understand that there are theories there as well. And my previous book about a community after Holocaust and these new types of community we have in our society. I described all this theoretical, and then I saw these processes in this community on our streets. And that because I was so impressed, and that because I was political active as well, and decided to go to this coordinational council and to organize feminist group, because I like this inclusive, broad protest, and I wanted to support as philosopher, as activist, as politician as well in some way. And we have also a small group with this title, Office for Educational Office of New Belarus. We started this office when I was I was a representative for educational questions in the office of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya. It was during 1 year in 2021. And we are working further. We have some supporting programs for students as one of actors who are try to support students, academical as well. And we make some research. The last one was, I like this research very, very much, with the title Fifth Republic. And we made, in framework of this research, 15 interviews with political actors. Most of all of them are outside of Belarus. Third of them are women. And then we organized 3 roundtables with experts, and prepared 12 articles. And at the end of this project, we prepared the map of different political positions of all these actors and experts. And we can see which position we have in our political, so to say, political field, because this field is outside of Belarus, and there is difficult to understand what is it, which role plays this field. But nevertheless, there is map, and we can see which position we have. Referring constitutional process, referring social policy regimes or welfare states regimes, referring political model, and referring different understanding of our collective identity. And I hope that we will work on this project further, because we need to discuss all these questions, how we must work on constitution. There are different positions, of course. There is a very difficult process, constitutional process, but all these questions, there are a lot of questions, and there are groups, of course, now outside of Belarus who are discussing this question as well, but we need more discussions. And from a point of view of our group, our political actors must understand which value they have, which place they have in this field, and not to be with all the people, to be not left and not right. We have such a position that politicians don't want to say that they have this and this value, and our idea is, and our group is left, and we want to provocate as well politicians, that they said that they are rather in this position and another position.
Do you have the saying by politicians, let's not politicize? No, we have it's popular here in Lithuania that politicians urge not to politicize.
Yeah. To be, I don't know, without this position, to be with, they are supporting all the values, but then they are pro-democratic, they are against Lukashenko, and then in different situation we can understand, of course, that they are either right or left, not left, either right, of course, yeah, there is the idea of this project, and I'm still in feminist group, and we had new election for coordinational council, and I decided not to be in this council now, because we have now in this council more women from our feminist group, not three, but 6 or 5 or 6. We have from our educational office one person in this council, and we have now a coalition of feminist and LGBTQ organizations. There are more than 18 persons from different organizations, and we have representatives from this coalition in the coordinational council as well. And that because I have understanding now, I have different ways to get information, to following what is going on, and I decided that I will have this critical, like public intellectual position, and to discuss from this position now what is going on. And there is a lot of task, and it is.
Yeah, seems a lot.
Yeah.
So I have prepared several questions, so I will ask Olga at the start, but in the end we can have this open discussion. So my next question would be, why do you use the word revolution in the book? You could call it uprising, protest, whatever, but you use the word revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can tell what kind of revolution it was.
On the one hand, as I described in my book, the idea was, I got this idea from my Armenian colleagues, because we were discussing the situation in Belarus during the protests in September 2020. And during the discussing that we have this revolution as a process. There is a revolution in progress, and we see that we can, maybe this process is started in Belarus as well. And then I decided, it's a good idea. I referred, of course, to my colleague, Armenian colleague. And I think that, of course, we had some protest in Belarus. There is a long history since 1991, since independence. But for first time we had such a big protest, and not for some social groups, but all the social groups were part of this protest. And I think that this changes this new understanding of our society. There is about revolution, that this self-understanding changed. And if you think about, also think about peaceful character of this revolution, my idea is that this peaceful character was important for this self-understanding, because of importance for the society to say, to show that society is another than Lukashenko. Lukashenko is connecting with violence, and society is. It was about imagination in this moment of revolution, to imagine that there is process of democratization during this revolution as such. And I think that people, all this networking, neighborhood, activity of different social groups, emancipation processes. I'm describing this like emancipation process of emancipation of different social groups. We saw students, professors, women, elderly people, and we didn't see before such emancipation on different groups. And on the other hand, it was about all the society's whole, and these both processes and inclusiveness, that it was not so homogeneous society. We had such a difficult organized society, such complexity, but this group were interconnecting, of course. And there is something new, and I very hope that it's impossible to go away. And Lukashenko can go away as well. What we have in Belarus now, there is more stronger repression than before 2020, and there is new situation, of course. But I wanted also bring some quotes from the very interesting and new book about the Arab Spring Everyday Life Revolution from Yasef Bayat from 2021. And in this book, we can compare how Yasef Bayat describes Arab Spring revolutions, this revolution in 19 countries, with only in 4 countries regimes were changed, and not in this way, only in one country in this way what people wanted. And if we look at this book and how Yasef Bayat describes this character of this revolution, we can compare this process with Belarusian case. For example, unlike the radical ideological revolutions, he proposed the new notion, not revolution, but revolutions, naturally give rise to non-hegemonic and fairly pluralistic regimes because the persistence of multiply powered centers, including those from the past regimes, as well as a resurgent civil society, prevent this regime from monopolizing power. Thus, instead of the early ideals of equality, welfare state, popular control, and revolution, they developed an explosion in the ideas of the individual, human rights, NGOs, market, and neoliberal reform, a paradigm that simultaneously entailed the descent of the marginalized and de-radicalization of the political class. This global, post-colonial, post-socialist, and post-Islamic era had, in short, created conditions for the rise of revolutions without revolutionaries, without a clear idea as to what should come next. Rather, they aim simply to improve dignified lives and secure fairness. And one interesting thing about extraordinarity. Maria Kolesnikova, it was the slogan proposed by Maria Kolesnikova, «Белорусы невероятные», we are extraordinary. And there is idea by Yasef Bayat as well. The key to the birth of the collective agency is the spirit of the moment, a sudden extraordinary constellation of voices, networks, and energies that activates overlapping interests and positionalities and renders disparate subaltern groups to share a feeling of collective pain and prospect. No matter how spectacular their activism might be, however, youth on their own can never create a breakthrough in the revolutionary mobilization. The breakthrough comes only when the ordinary people turn to become extraordinary, when the elderly and adolescent, mother and grandmother, small sister or brother, the poor and the better off join to bring such extraordinary acts of rebellion into wider social spectrum, and when these diverse constituencies transcend their sectoral claims in favor of broader claims of all citizens united in a singular movement. And there are, of course, the things that are not like in Belarusian case, but we can compare with these revolutions without leader, either movement or revolutionary movement, then revolution like such a progressive and connecting with understandable task, movement with such a task and structures, and revolutions as processes. And it's very interesting in the idea proposed by Yasef Bayatis. There is not only about Arab Spring, but there is a new character of revolutions in 21st century.
Yeah, and Belarusian case was one of the features was that it was led by women. So maybe, we can connect, I think in the book you're telling also that how these leaders changed themselves through the process, that they became more, I would say, outspoken, or they lost this position of we came here because our men are present, but they became leaders themselves, not because of that, they are taking someone's place. So I'm interested in your view, how much this new visibility of women in politics, how it touched society, what kind of topics maybe it raised, topics that probably we speak a lot, but it weren't so popular maybe in society, or what would be your take? What was the effect of this, that women were leaders of this movement?
Of course, my idea is that not only women were leaders, but the role of women was very big, and this role started in June 2020 around this Yeva portrait by Chaim Sutin, and it was the first organization of women, first visibility, and Yeva, this portrait, started to be one of the symbols of protest, revolution of progress. And my idea is that such months women proposed new ideas. First this Yevolution with this Yeva, then this joint women team with Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, Maria Kolesnikova, and Veronika Tsepkala. Then the first chain of solidarity, then women marches. We started this FEM group in Coordinational Council, and all these ideas, all these strategies were different. And then the last strategies I'm describing is sisterhood in prison, and there is why this sisterhood is so important, because in prison women, they and me as well, we were discussing our experiences, our vulnerability, and we made visible how we can transform our vulnerability in our power, in new form of networking and cooperation. And I think that we also propose such a form of cooperation for the society as whole, and then I'm describing this in this fourth chapter, that people, different activists, journalists, were describing this different form of mutual support, of transforming of identity, this hegemonic masculine identity as well, that we are vulnerable, and that because it's okay to be vulnerable. If we are vulnerable, we need more cooperation, more horizontal cooperation, more support. In their society, there is our what we can and must do. And I think that it was this, first of all, women's experience, and women were prepared to start to speak openly about all this difficult experience. And I think that all these different forms, they were, if we compare all the different forms of activity of women's, all these forms are about horizontal cooperation, about this mutual help. If we think about this joint women team, Maria Kolesnikova, all of these women, they said that we need all the people, we must work all together. And I think that it was such an answer from the society that, yeah, we can do this if we are interconnecting, and we must develop trust in the process of this protest, because there were problem, of course, with trust in our society. And it was very interesting how people were learning how they can trust each other. It was something amazing in this, first of all, 100 days. And I think that these impulses were, we got these impulses, first of all, from women. And that because I was so impressed and I wanted to describe this, and of course to note it, the name of these women. I'm always get from people who are reading my book, and they said that it's so important that we have the name of these women and all this activity. But if we compare how many names of men are in my books, I will say it's enough. Maybe the same quantity. It's not there are a lot, not only about women in my book, but it's very important not forget about women.
Yeah, I think Agnes told in our reading club that we were so we have a reading club every Sunday. We'll make an advertisement here about we study imperialisms. So and we said that it would be amazing if like your book, we thought it's like also a historical document. And we thought, well, if it would have been something the same in 90s in Lithuania, it would have been amazing. But I mean, we were talking about it in a way to look at this. So I'm moving to my next question. But like, I think from Lithuania, this events in Belarus, at least for me, it seemed that here they didn't cause any problematic questions for ourselves. So it was this strange feeling that we are looking to Belarus as something that they are trying to achieve what we already have. And there is nothing new, nothing progressive in these struggles, that we don't have, problems with like patriarchy or domestic violence. So it was, this kind of strange kind of thinking that the end result of this event should be this liberal democratic state as we have in Lithuania. Although it's, I think it's like, I would say it's strange to think that this is, the history has these clear lines, how it should go. So my question, one thing is probably what I felt like in the book, you are trying also to suggest narratives. So how, for example, how this nation building could look like, how we could understand what it means to be Belarusian, or to be in this kind of, to create a new political community. So how do you think, I mean, I know it's a very broad question, but how, is there this potential to go that, you would have, it's a strange question, but what's your thoughts about it? Like about nationalism, and is it possible to avoid some of the errors that we see are happening with like nationalism becoming reactionary?
Yeah, there is a very good and very important question for me as well, and for feminists there is, of course, all the time very important question. And yesterday I was discussing with my students. I have seminar in Basel about Belarusian revolution, and we were discussing, for example, the idea proposed by two Ukrainian feminists, Maria Mayerchik and Olga Plahotnik, about two times, time of nation and time of feminism. And time of nation, there is about this states and community, how we have this community now, with all these hierarchies, and women must then have roles near men in this hierarchical organized society, with neoliberal politics and stronger far-right politicians and movements. And time of feminism, there is about more horizontal community, of course, about more ecological consciousness, about questioning of all these hierarchies, institutions, about neoliberals, what we have now in this neoliberal order, more inequality, and inequality interstate, not between states, but in each state more inequalities. And the question is how this, and we have two times, and if we think from this time of feminism, there is not about the role of women in this system, but about new framing of all this system. And another question is how this time of feminism is possible in the situation of war. And I'm discussing this question with these authors, with these Ukrainians, and they said, they think that quite possible, but I think that it's possible because we think in this situation of war about human rights as well, and we try to speak about women, about visibility of women. If we didn't have this idea, then we have only men, only weaponed men, and we didn't speak about all this mutual help, what is a very important part of this struggle and international struggle as well. And if we think about our political community, of course, there is about sovereign community. We have national states system, and this is not question in my case. The question is how is community, this connection between people are organized, and there are of course different answers. And if we speak about more conservative nationalist position, there is about and if we think about describing ideas of Benedict Anderson, the past is very, very important for this community, and this past is not only narrative. There is myth and constructing of myths. And if we have myths, then we can be critical. And we have only heroes, we don't have women. Of course, we can't have human rights because we don't have human rights in our past. And then we have all these problems. The next question, can we speak about liberal nationalism? And I'm prepared for our project Fifth Republic, the text about this possibility to speak about conservative and liberal nationalism. Liberal nationalism is either about the civic nationalism, but if we have this civic nationalism, there is all the time tendency to think in the term of conservative and to have these heroes, to have hierarchies, and to think that only elites, if we think in this ideology from the 19th century, then there is mass and elites, men and women, and we have this discussion in Belarus. Then we had to try to think in another way. And one Ukrainian author, for example, proposed to think about Ukrainian political community in the term of nationalist, modernist from the perspective of modernization, and Zelensky was before 2020 not nationalist, but this modernization figure, and pluralistic. The third is pluralistic vision, and this pluralistic vision is about inclusive understanding of our community. Past is, of course, past is important, but the starting point is today's problems, today's discourses, human rights, no discrimination, difficult organized society with all this complexity. And then if we think about past from this perspective, then we have different narratives about past as well, and we will not forget about women and everyday life, for example, because these big nationalist narratives, there is either not about every day, but either about wars and heroes. And and there is, of course, we need this discussion, and there is, for me, courage as well to say, I would try to speak outside of this nationalist, not only conservative, but liberal nationalist framework, and I would speak about inclusive, pluralistic understanding of political community, of political Belarusian community, sovereign political Belarusian community, but not nationalist, but pluralistic and inclusive. And I get a lot of criticism because there is war, we need nation, and so on. But someone need to have this position, I suppose. And if I can have courage and said, I can discuss this, and I have my colleague who has such arguments as well, then we can try to criticize. And I think we need different discourses. We need different understanding to create our community and our society in this difficult way, because our society is difficult. There is complexity, and inclusion is, I think, most important for us today. And there is, of course, differentiation. If we think about 90s, we didn't have this understanding that inclusion is so important.
Yeah, it's. I had this last question about how we could cooperate more, which is yeah. I mean, it's connected. I think that with this strange feeling with Belarus. I mean, with Russia as well, but I guess with Russia there is much more reasons now. But like this feeling that, although it's so geographically and historically a close country with Lithuania, I mean, we even have similar words. The history is so similar and so much in common. But there is this distance, which is, of course, this geopolitical, that we live on the border of this geopolitical border. So I don't know. It's, I guess, the same question that we just talked, but it's, I think, also about my thoughts is that thinking about this identity and how we can get out of this situation that is now with the war, and also asking how Russians can get out of it. And I kind of like what this Ilya Budraiskis tells, that to decolonize the region, you also need to ask what connects us. So what is our identity? That wouldn't be like, I am against the West, as for the Russian, as Putin tries to say, that we are this traditional, keeping traditions safe from the Western ideology. I think for us as well, it's like, what is our identity without being anti-Russian, anti this. I mean, it's becoming much more for Lithuania. I think this being holding the flag of human rights, although we have many problems here as well, but it's this kind of conflict creates this possibility to represent ourselves as, finally we are Europeans. We are not in this backward thing. So I think it really creates obstacles for us to cooperate. I mean, us, I'm meaning for political activists, like those probably who are seeking for this cooperation, for this creating society that is more in solidarity between each other. So what's your thoughts? Maybe you have something that you want to tell from your perspective. How do you look to Lithuania, or what's your relation with political community, and what could be better?
I think now that there are some frameworks which are more open for such a discussion. For example, contemporary art. Because in the field of contemporary art, there are this discussion in new language about how we think about not identities, maybe about subjectivation in different way. They prepared about borders. What are borders? Hierarchies in different way. Feminist theory, it's like such a way to discuss. This book was translated by my feminist colleagues. And I think there are some, I would say that there are some knowledge areas and practical areas where this communication, where preconditions for this communication are still prepared. And there is, for example, not in Belarus now, in Berlin, but organized by Belarusians, anti-war coalition, contemporary art project, and there are people from around the world there, and this coalition, this exhibition, discussions are everywhere at different places, and I think that maybe we need to look at this context frameworks where these discussions are possible, and to learn how we can start these discussions, collaboration in other fields, and why they are more possible in contemporary art. But I think that contemporary art, this critical social, political, critical contemporary art is about questioning all these big concepts and to propose new concepts and to be critical. Of course, there is about values as well. There is about violence, for example, state violence, and then we can say that Putin regime, there is violent regime, that because we need fight against such regime. And then if we speak about society, we must understand how it's functioning, this society, why people are supporting this regime and who is not support this regime. But I think all this violence, hierarchies, form of subjectivities, new communities. I think that if we think about contemporary art fields, there are a lot of ideas how we can, and a lot of maybe more images than a concept, but it's very helpful, I think, for us. There is, now I think, I thought about this, I was here at the Kaunas Biennale in 2019. I was impressed. It was a very impressive work by Mykola Ridney at the main station, and I think there is such a international language, and of course not a lot of people can understand it sometimes, this language, but maybe we can cooperate and use these ideas and images.
I cannot understand 80%. Yeah.
Lost it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So before opening the floor to everyone, I wanted to tell that Colibris is here, and If someone wants to buy a book, Olga's book, it's called in Lithuanian Revoliucijos veidas moteriškas Baltarusijos atvejs. Man atrodo, nebuvau paminėjęs. I just told the name of the book. You also brought a book in Belarusian or
in Russian
in
language.
Russian?
I have only one example,
Okay.
but in Lithuanian book we have more images, and we have, can I say, our most important plakat. This is Patriarchat Pizda. And this, how it is in English, plakat? Poster. And this poster is from protest, is in Krakow. It was brought from Minsk to Krakow. And there's only in Lithuanian edition. It's very important sign of our protest, and feminist and LGBTQ and inclusion, sign of inclusion.
So my last thought from hearing you was maybe a way out of this whole. I think that we need to get somehow out of these big narratives, big heroic narratives of whatever block we belong, but so maybe we need to revive this identity of Tuteshi. You are where you live, and to be somehow connected to where you are, but
to start and to find then new ways to understand where we are together. And we are now together in this fight for Ukraine, I think, and we can understand what are our values and why it's so important to. And on the one hand, we understand this. There is about survival. But on the other hand, there is about a lot of different values about our future and how we can imagine what will be in Europe, what we want in the world, not only in Europe.
Okay. So, who wants to ask or say, comment something? Can you take a mic? Because we're recording the.
Hello. So I think I mentioned something. I'm sorry if I'm misunderstanding something. I was trying to listen attentively, but that like you worked with Svetlana or like you had contact with her. But when I just wanted to ask, like, how is she seen in Belarus? Because in Lithuania, like, her image is kind of weird, because she's like a female leader, but also media likes to call her like a housewife and just a wife, which is like very misogynistic in my opinion. And it kind of reminds us like how in Lithuania the president's wife is like presented, and how she's basically known for being the wife, and that's it. And also there's like something I've wondered is that in Lithuania, I don't know once again how it actually is, but in Lithuania she's also kind of presented as very non-ideological, like, okay, we'll have just free elections. And then like the immediate question is then like, is that really it? Or are you like considering privatization, or are you not doing that? Like, so I just wonder like, what's your view on her, and like how is she seen in Belarus? Is it similar or is it different? That's my question.
Thank you. Yeah, first she was, of course, understand like a housewife in the summer of 2020. But then, and I'm describing this in my book, then we saw changes in discourses. Journalists started to describe she as educated woman, and then after some time as politician. And these changes, we saw the changes, the way these changes with she transformed as well. And we have some pools, this Chatham House pools, and people still understand Svetlana Tikhanovskaya like a democratic leader of Belarus. And as for political values and spectrum, there is a problem. I mentioned this, that our politicians, they don't want to say that we have such and this and that values. And I would say she is so right centrist either. But interesting, we discussed today, since August last year, we have a new office, broader and joint office of Svetlana Tikhanovskaya because of escalation of the war. We have in this office 4 men and 3 women. In these 3 women are very different. If we speak about Svetlana Tikhanovskaya like right centrist, we have more conservative woman, Alina Koushik, and she is responsible now for national revival, for work with the past. And we have the third woman, Olga Garbunova. She's feminist, she's open lesbian, and she's responsible for social questions. And it's very interesting. There is like this joint team we had in July and August 2020, because Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, Maria Kolesnikova, and Veronika Tsepkalo were different women as well. And Maria Kolesnikova said that she is feminist, only she, and other Svetlana Tikhanovskaya and Veronika Tsepkalo, of course, no. And we have the same situation with these 3 women. And I would say I see now this office like a collective, as a political team as well. I would say not only about Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, but about the structure. And the idea is, of course, to prepare election, to fight for democratic Belarus, prepare election. That because this identification, either right or left, is they are rather in spectrum. They are different because there is about preparing of election. And I don't know. We maybe the other experts would see the situation in another way. But for me, there is like a platform with different position, and I think it's good that there are different people near Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, that they invited this Olga Garbunova. Olga Garbunova was more than a half a year imprisoned, and she wanted to stay in Belarus, but it was impossible. It was a big risk that she will go to prison another time, and she couldn't do something in Belarus to help people, and she decided that she will go outside and that she will be active, and she joined then this Svetlana Tikhanovskaya office.
So I have 2 questions. One question is about the support of Lithuania to this whole resistance movement and democratic movement of Belarus. Do you think it's changed? Because we feel that, after the Lukashenko used this migration through the Belarusian border as a weapon, kind of, or they say it, they frame it like that, as a revenge for Lithuanians who were supporting Belarusian this revolution that you're talking about. And do you think do you feel that it changed after that? And also we have Ukrainian war, and also we had news all the time that Belarusian the army of Russia is also near the border by Ukraine, but on the territory of Belarus. So all this, I think, as I see it, changed a lot, a kind of a view towards this kind of democratization of Belarus and support of it. And the second question would be about, I don't know if you're familiar with Inside what is happening now in Belarus, like in terms of like, because we have inflation, we have like a lot of economic problems, and what is, because we are kind of also very much disconnected from what is happening there, although more and more people here are also from Belarus who coming here to study and to work and to live. So I was wondering what is also happening there now in terms of social and economic situation.
Yeah. So first question about supporting. Yeah, the new difficulties. We have new difficulties after 2021 and after the escalation of the Russian war in the Ukraine, and there is difficult for people to get visas and for students to get support. But if we compare what Lithuanian or Poland are doing and with what are Germans or Austrians or French are doing, there is support of Lithuania and Poland is of course bigger than. It's so difficult to develop something for people, for Belarusians in Germany and in Austria. Such difficulties with documents, and I think that I think that in Lithuania there are possibilities for people flying from Belarus, opposition from Russia as well, and I think there is a big position of Lithuania that it's possible to people who are against this Lukashenko and Putin regime to develop here the projects. I think it's a strong part of Lithuanian society or politicians. There is about corruption as well, because some part of society is against, or some parts are against, but in general, of course, Lukashenko is co-aggressor. It's without questions, and that because it's difficult to make clear that people have another opinion than Lukashenko. We say all the time that we must differentiate between Belarusian society and Lukashenko, but it's difficult. We must say about this, but all the time we need to bring new facts about this. And there is about the second question, what people are doing in Belarus if we have resistance, and there are all the time these questions, where is resistance in Belarus? And I suppose you know about this. After in 2021 we have the state's control is more and more stronger in Belarus at all the levels, at the legislative level, at everyday life level as well. There are, and we get all the time new form of control about people at working places, at universities, and this culture to state want that people checking what other people, whether other people are against regime, and then they donose prepare this call and describe what the neighbor do, and all this culture is, of course, it's difficult to stay in such situation and to do something, but people still have this mood. I bring at my lectures all the time new quotes about this. People said that we must to hide, not to be dehumanized in this situation, we must not to be part of this system, and to do something. There is not about open resistance. We don't have place now for this open resistance because more than 1,200 NGOs were forcibly closed or waiting of closing, and there are no places. And if you have this band with Ukrainian flag, you can be arrested and get 2 years in prison. But people still try to do something, and there is some activities and some hidden places, and that because we have still this repression against society. Every day someone is arrested, and people get now years in prison, and we will understand further these processes because there is underground, and Lukashenko and people around him, they are saying all the time, we are searching for people. We have no new list. I read today that there is new list for some educational institution because people were active in 2020 and they are now in the list. They will fired in, I don't know, in some months.
And you told me that there is death penalty for state employees who
Yeah.
So, and I wanted to ask, I was asking you already, but how much the war affected Belarusian society in terms of did it create new antagonisms in society? Those who would support more like Russia, or those who are for Ukraine, or what do you think?
Yeah, on the one hand, these polls, this Chatham House data show all the time that in general people are against war and against participating of Belarusian army and Belarusian in this war. Because to be against war, there is too general. Yeah, there is about participation in this war. And on the one hand, on the other hand, we see through this data now that propaganda is stronger. That we have more people who now, after months, after 1 year, they believe propaganda. So about 10% more people trust now this propaganda and official media. But and there is about the last Chatham House polls were about union with Russia or with European Union, and here we see more people for European Union and more for Russia, and we see here this polarization in our society. But it's difficult to say. There are a lot in this last issue. We also see that we have more people who don't understand, they don't have opinion. Because people say all the time that situation is very insecure, and more people after the escalation of the war, more people. We have about 90% people say that there is very insecure situation, and then of course it's difficult to have opinion and to describe what do you think. And I have in these quotes what I have in my for my text. People say that that they don't have horizon for planning. They have a horizon of planning is 2 weeks, 1 month, and in such insecure situation, people can answer one thing and then another thing, or they don't have opinion. But there are signs that we have polarization of some group as well. I suppose that we have this, but maybe the situation is not stable. There is not about normalization in any case, and it's about the understanding how it's possible to live under this condition, under this control, and to support each other. This supporting, I'm hear about this supporting from my parents as well, that there are connection between people. They are checking what is going on around in your different crises, because economical situation is insecure and unstable. Yeah, it's everywhere, but sanction, they will play bigger role with the time.
Small comment here. When speaking about, as a person observing from the outside, speaking about the social action inside the Belarus, I'm just wondering, was it on purpose, or is it just, did you forget about the partisan movement, which is kind of strong nowadays in Belarus, and all attacks on military objects, and not entirely, not only on them? Could you please comment on that as well? Because it's also anonymous, right, and probably horizontal. Yep.
Yeah, we still have some signs. Yeah, it was the last signs about this plane, Russian plane, and it was surprising for all of us that people organize such an action. And
can you tell? I didn't hear about this plane. What do you mean?
That at the territory of Belarus, a plane. What was the kind of this very important military plane, Russian plane, and this plane was stolen? No, not stolen, not stolen. It was an action. It was.
They flew a drone on that plane and.
Not bombed. Something. And a Russian got this plane, brought this plane to Russia, but there is a problem to make this plane. How to say?
Parts of the plane were destroyed by Belarusian forces.
But no, there is not the whole story. The problem is that it's because of sanction, it's impossible to make this plane now functioning. Yeah, and there is very important that we don't have enough information, but it seems that it will be problems with this plane, and the Russians have some, I don't know, 5 or 7 such plans, and it was a big action, and it was it was surprising for all of us, we don't have, of course, there is hidden all these actions, but if we have such actions, we have a report about this because it's very important for Belarusian, and we have this Kalinovsky regiment in Ukraine, and there are some interviews with people from this regiment. They understand themselves as political actor as well. It's very interesting about this vision, what will be with Belarus, and there are we have now a lot of new political actors outside of Belarus, and different ideas what will be happen after the war, and which actors will have enough instruments to win and to get Belarus and to fight for Belarus.
I just have a question about some political movement. In 90s and at the beginning of zeros, some female political party existed in Belarus, and actually it was some information maybe 6 years ago when Nina Kalashnikova, I forget her surname, just with some female group organized other political movement, but they failed, and of course Ministry of Juridical Affairs don't sign up their party. And I just have a question: is it relevant to think about some female political party in Belarus? And if it is, and do you thinking about political career to, for example, running up this party to elections, or just would be in some council of this party?
At the moment it's very difficult, of course, to speak about parties, about grounding of new parties. For example, we have this Babarika circle, people around Babarika. Maria Kolesnikova was part of this candidate, one of the candidates, Viktor Babarika, and there are some visible person, Ivan Kravtsov, Anton Rodnenkov from this crisis, and they wanted to organize party, and we don't see this party because it's if you are outside of Belarus, maybe the idea of movement is more strong and more. It's better to have such a movement to communicate with people, to develop some project, than to have party, because people are in different countries now and they are interconnected, but like to exist like a party is party. Okay. There is if we think about this moment, and if we think what I see about women, we have more active political women, and a lot of women are organizing now different supporting places everywhere in Tbilisi. In Vilnius, Yulia Mickiewicz has this Aktivnym być fajna place. There is such a meeting place with and Yulia Mickiewicz. Yulia Mickiewicz, my colleague, she was from the beginning one of the organizers of this FEM group in Coordinational Council, and she is now not only in Coordinational Council but also in the group in Europe, connecting with, referring to European Commission. There is such a European group, and I see more women after 2020. More women understand themselves as politicians, and I think that I can imagine this. Some of these women or collaboration of these women will bring a party. I can imagine this. Yeah. As for me, as I was in this, when I was in this Svetlana Tikhanovskaya office, I understood that I'm not a politician, because it was such a pressure to be all the time public. I like to be public. I like such meetings and to be public researcher, to be public ученая, scientist, scholar, but to be a politician, there is a big issue. Yeah, you need to be this situation to be public, and people need to speak with you or media every time, and it's, for me, it's very difficult. I'm first of all a researcher, but I'm still in this group as expert, and I'm working with media. I'm monitoring the situation, and my decision is to be connecting, to work with politicians. To be in. I'm for collective actions and for more horizontal and collective, and to understand politician as collective, as networking as groups, and to be in such group, and maybe to speak from time to time. It's for me to have such a connection. I didn't have such direct connection to politicians before, and now I decided I will have this connection. I will monitoring. I will help people when I see something. For example, as I understood that it will be election, coordination council, I send this information all my friends to all groups, and promoting that we need people, new people, and people with our values. Now I have my position, and I understand me in this way, my political position as well.
Yeah, I will say a thing. I'm still thinking in this, like, what can we learn from Belarus, or at least from the book what I read from you. One of the things seemed to me that it's also very much important in Lithuania is this connection with politics, what you told, but also with institutions. So you tell that instead of destroying the institution, there is more like a vision of reforming it, and also like caring for institutions. So I think it's becoming political in a way is caring about your community, which kind of trying to think how institutions can be part of community in some way, I guess, work in this field. So I think for Lithuania it's as much important, because even if we think that it's all political freedom, everybody can speak what they want. From my experience, how many times we were, for example, organizing support for teachers when they were striking, let's say in 2016 or something, people would tell, I'm afraid to speak out, I might get fired, or I might get some, it's actually there is a lot of fear. Maybe you will not go to prison, but still, there is this kind of tension there. So, yeah.
Do you know Timothy Snyder, the big intellectual support in Ukraine now? In 2017, prepared a book about 20 уроков от тирании, 20 lessons about tyranny. And one of the lessons is about caring, in his words, caring about institution, and his idea is to choose some institution and to care about this institution, the society, to be aware, to be critical, but to support this institution, because these right populists, they are destroying institutions, and that because it's so important. If you think that judges or I don't know, some unions are important in the society, and you can support that institution and care. He described this as care about the institutions. In your word, there is like a common ideas, important not only for us but in USA as well. Yeah, if we think about Trump and maybe Trump will the next president. Don't know. New.
Yeah.
Don't know what will be in the future.
Well, how they say, let's hope for the best, but prepare for the I don't know. I hope not the worst, but so I don't know if there is no more questions. Okay, Alexandre, go.
So this is kind of only partially related to feminism, but anyway, it's just I'm curious about it. So like during protests in Belarus, and to be honest in Russia as well, like I noticed media focuses a lot on street protests and far less on like everything else. But it appeared to me, and I honestly only learned this from independent media, so I don't know how accurate this is, but that there were quite a few like worker strikes as well going on, like during that like 2021 summer. And like I wanted to ask about them, but also it appears to me like in Belarus a lot of enterprises state-owned, and it's like it belongs to like people who are close to like Lukashenko in that circle. So like what can strikes achieve? Are they like more effective than like in a more like mixed economy with what we have, or is it like similar? What would you say?
In this situation in 2020, if we think about workers, fast workers and strike of workers, fast workers started strikes, and Lukashenko was at some factory, and it was this video that workers said, no, we are against you, and we are for Svetlana Tikhanovskaya, and Lukashenko was very angry. It was a very important sign. But now with the time, and I'm describing this in my book because there were a lot of interview, and it was visible that state has had strategy at this factory. There were people from KGB on the one hand. The most active people were arrested. On the other hand, there weren't these unions, and there weren't structure to organize people. And then some people were arrested. Other people, the director of this factory said, we will do our best, you must go home. And some people trust, because they didn't have experience with these strikes. And so to say, workers were divided. They didn't have structures. The most important, the new leaders were arrested, and some people were too naive in this situation. And that because, such a situation were everywhere. But I think at the factory, this situation was most stronger, because these people from KGB, they were at workers at the factory more stronger, because the state control is stronger. And then we saw the situation at university, for example, but this strikes at university were maybe more visible because of less control at universities. And it was surprising the students were active, and at factories it was more state control, and workers are so important for the state. And if we speak about economical situation, it's a very interesting situation. On the one hand, there are this state owner of these factories. On the other hand, the most workers have these court-term contracts. And that because they have for 1 year, for example, short-term contracts, and then they have credits for flats, and they're such they are in the hand of state, and the situation is very. There is like state capitalism in Belarus. There is not the situation which we had in the Soviet time, and that because there is very interesting constellation at the factory, and I think workers could protest because they understand, of course, the situation if they had this structure, organized structure, because they don't had these structures. It was very difficult, impossible, and the state was very, very quickly understood what to do and how to destroy this activity of workers. It was more difficult to destroy, for example, athletes or students for first time, because there are another another logic, another control, and another possibility for these people.
But the idea was also that eventually, like, having the state companies and workers, it could also provide big leverage to fight against the regime. But you explained the other side that at the same time workers are so dependent for their survival that leverage just doesn't work. But potentially it sounds like a big, strong political weapon against the state if the workers would organize. Paralyze the economy. So it's interesting that, I mean, that's the potential, but the reality is the opposite. As you said.
So, wanted to ask, no?
No, after. Question after.
Good.
Lecture, because the topic is not for.
You mean personally?
Yeah, something
Okay.
like
Yeah, I think this is one of the things why I would say we need to support, for example, Russian opposition, because I think also Putin destroyed all the civic organizations in the country. So even if you push him out, the head of it, what can you get if there is no kind of civil organizations, democratic organizations that can bring this change?
Referring Russia, I have all the time idea that this cooperation with the Russian opposition is important because this Russian opposition must organize decolonization of Russia, not we and not people from other countries. There is task for Russians, and if we will not cooperate in some way with these people, who will help to fight against this Putin regime, and to understand, we must help to help understand Russia, that there is a difference between regime and country. I'm still hear that people said, critical thinking Russians, that there is about our country, and that because we are not so, I don't know, we don't know what to do. But for Belarusians, we have our country, but we have regime, Lukashenko regime. We are fighting against regime. We can differentiate this. And I'm hearing a lot from Russian that it's difficult to differentiate this. In some way, this always about, if they speak about country, they speak in the same time about regime, about state. And I think that we must discuss all these issues, but there is a task for Russians to fight against. First of all, for Russians, and to make this decolonization possible, we need this decolonization of Russia, the imperialization.
Okay, so I think we can go to. You will stay for hour or so until the train, so we still have, if somebody wants to speak personally, there is some time, so thank you for coming, and yeah.